Come join along with us on our adventure to Pryor, Oklahoma's Okie Homesteading Expo 2022. Here's some clips of what I gathered around the convention this weekend.
So, glad to see there's some people that have goats, or at least have goats. And also, they are electrified. So, part of the reason why we got goats is because my husband grew up on
There's a difference. So one starts up and one starts down. But y'all don't care about that. I just have to remember so it doesn't look foolish. Yes. Takes just as long. It's a different fuel. It's all about BTUs.
Dutch, Randy, Kevin, Rachel, and Bo and Lindy, and Chad with Valley Farm. So we've all been very blessed to be able to be a part of this. We have 3 kids, and Gary and I are both raised on the farm, and we wanted to love and appreciate that lifestyle, so we made sure that our kids was raised on the farm as well and learn those values. So in 2020, we decided to share our farm on YouTube. I always share it on Instagram, but we decided to start sharing on YouTube. We assumed no one would watch us. My family was just like, well, everybody does that all the time, so why should do that? I was like, I don't know, but people watch it, it's crazy. So we started sharing our life on YouTube, and it's just been a blessing. We've met a lot of people along the way, and we're just excited to see where that takes us. So, like I said, there are lots of people here who aren't a part of the committee, but have YouTube, social media accounts, all the vendors. If you guys would just check those people out, we'd appreciate it. And don't be afraid if you see somebody to say hi, shake their hand, hug their neck. Some people don't like hugs, but you can usually figure that out. But for the most part, we're just so appreciative that everybody has been so supportive in this. A lot of people have been asking about $50,000 in giveaways, and a lot of people are nervous about how we're going to work. So they are doing the drawings over the main event center, and outside.
Good, how are you?
There's a poster board, and they'll write your ticket number on there, and what price it was, so that you can check.
Go ahead. You're fine.
Because we understand people everywhere.
They haven't made it back to their booth yet.
To do that. So at 3 o'clock, though, whatever price is redeemed, then we will redraw so that every price has an element in it. And it's something like a free or anything. So if you have a question this evening for any of us on the committee or some of the guest speakers and things, we'll put them in that box. Then at 3 o'clock, we'll start working on that in the event center. There is Okie Homesteading shirts and coffee mugs. It is 9:39, and at 8 o'clock there's a lot of them. Now I have no idea. But over in what we're calling the headquarters in the main event building in the hallway, there's kind of a check-in station, and that's where you can purchase t-shirts and coffee mugs and things like that, but it's very limited, and possibly, I don't even know if there's any left right now. That's also where you can purchase your ticket for the Cherokee, traditional Cherokee hog fry. If you want to take part in that, you do have to purchase a ticket for your plate there. He's cooking right outside here, and I'm sure he can tell you all about the Cherokee Nation, or the Cherokee heritage when it comes to a hog fry, but that's something that's really important to our family and Kevin and Rachel's and Bo and Lindy's as well. So Kevin had a great idea to share that with all of you, because us locals, a hog fry, we're like,
There you go.
let's do it. Other people are kind of like, I don't understand what's happening. So more than just eating of the food, when Cherokees have a hog fry, there's always a story behind it or a reason why it's a big deal, and you don't have to be part of the family. If you just stop by, they'll feed you, and it's always a good, fun day and lots of memories made. But he can tell you more about it as he's out there cooking, but he's using traditional pots that I'm sure have been handed down, and it's usually fried bread and potatoes and beans, and the hot meat is just
Good.
it's amazing. So if you want to take part in that.
So if you want to make sure you're utilizing your space properly, we took 2 shelves. We tried to minimize kids' clothing. We had like 25 kids. So we tried to minimize some clothing the other day, and we took 2 shelves out, and we got with it. And so we want to make sure that we're utilizing our space, putting things where we can, and pretty much it's all food wherever you can find it. We hoard, but we hoard the food.
The only other thing I want to mention about the pressure canner is I ran into someone that told me that they were given an old pressure canner, and I thought that was amazing, but they did have major issues with it. And I have recently been told that if your local extension services will actually check those canners for you. So if you've been gifted grandma's pressure canner from 50 years ago, make sure you take that and have it checked because you're going to use faulty.
So again, the main thing is to set up my service. It allows you to get food
Yeah. That's why I was trying to get a picture of this.
Soups. Just remember, go with the longevity of time of whatever the items that you use. If you're using corn in any meal, corn is got high sugar content, because it's the very top of our third to show the actual percent. So you want to make sure that you all the now, it's not. It is a learning curve, and you got to buy equipment. Now, it's not expensive to buy the equipment, but it is something that you need to do. Like, for instance, we have the alternate beginning, freshly mason. You can find candles from all sorts and that kind of sorts. Most of the time, you have to find a garage sale. If someone's done bought one, and they don't know what it is, you're going to put it up for $2.
Why don't you tell me what I've done with my first skin? I sold it.
Yeah, oh yeah, so we bought it. And
He actually bought it for me. And I was like, I'm not using that, I'm too scared
she was
of it.
intimidated by it. So she sold it for like $10, and it was like crazy. I was so mad. But we won't talk about it. So anyways, know your equipment, learn your equipment, make sure you understand what you're doing with it, but also there is a learning curve. The books do not preach it. Like, you need to rely on the books. Make sure you have a copy. Don't rely on the internet, because the internet's not always there. Get this book. Actually, we're giving away one today. But you need to have it. It's very good to have, especially if you can. Remember this though, one thing we want to talk about and it is a lot of pressure. This chicken, you're not canning, you're only canning chicken.
Yeah. Whew. I do want to say this. I had dinner with Doug and Andy last night, and man, y'all have done a wonderful job with this whole event. I don't know if anybody's told y'all that or not, but this is awesome. Awesome. And I know as an army, it's easy, but there's no other way. This is incredible. Just unbelievable. No hiccups, well-oiled machine, and I cannot even imagine. I can't. I know Dutch. I know him. And I know what it takes to run a YouTube channel, and I know what it takes to try to build a house. And I just cannot imagine doing this on top of everything else you're doing, man. You're Superman. You are. That's crazy. That is nuts. I had somebody recently ask me, why don't we have one in Alabama? And I said, y'all crazy. There's no way. I would never do this. This is unbelievable, dude. Honestly. This is awesome, man. I guess most of y'all may know us. If you don't, we are Cog Hill Farm. We are recently bought 40 acres We lived on 7.5 acres in central Alabama in a rural, it was a rural neighborhood. That's the best way I can explain it. And we started our little homestead, 15, 17 years ago. And as we grew, I loved farming. And but my 7.5 acres we had first part was in a neighborhood, and it was on a hill way up, and it come down, and it come back up on the hill over here, and it was all woods. The bottom was wet. Cemetery was on 2 acres of it. The front 2 acres was on restriction, and we had restrictions on it because it was in a neighborhood. So we had about 3 acres that we actually farmed, right?
3 acres would be pushing it.
3 acres would be pushing it. I don't know if you watched our videos, it may have looked larger than that, but that's exactly what we did, and it was mostly woods. And I just got so passionate about farming, and I wanted to do it so bad. We couldn't move at the time, and so we started doing gardening, and then there really wasn't a market for that. I kind of wanted to do a CSA. There wasn't a market for that. So then we started polling our friends and family with meat chickens. And just started testing the waters and see if that was going to work. Of course, you got Joel out there, Joel Salatin. I was getting pumped watching his stuff and seeing what he was doing. But I didn't have acres and acres and acres of pasture land. So Brooke had a friend of hers that she went to school with that was running a meat chicken farm on the outskirts of Birmingham, Alabama, in Bessemer, in a neighborhood.
In her front yard.
In her front yard. And was selling to a high-end food truck and catering service. And the catering service did Dick Saban's daughter's wedding. So that kind of tells you how big this catering service was. And she was doing all this in her front yard. She was even selling meat rabbits to the Hot Fish Club, which is Chris Hastings, who is a James Beard award-winning chef, in her city limits, right outside Birmingham, Alabama, which was amazing. And so we were like, you know what? We can do this.
Well, I reached out to her and I asked if there was any way that we could come and visit her and see how she handled her operation. And lo and behold, she said yes. And Jason, Mary Carl, and myself, we drove up to Bessemer, Alabama. And when we pulled up, we thought we were in the wrong place. But she didn't tell me she was growing these things in her front yard.
Yeah.
So we pull up a big hill, up a driveway, and we stop at the chicken tractors. They're lined up in front of her house. And we get out before she even comes outside. We're like, we didn't know that this is what meat chickens were raised in. We had no idea. We were thinking you got to have, she didn't have a pasture.
Yeah.
And so how's she doing this? Well, she comes out and she explains to us that she moves this little tractor daily and that she puts them on fresh ground and that she provides them with, feed 24/7 and they always have water. And that's basically all they needed. But as long as they could move, they were on fresh grass, they had feed, they could grow and meet her demand.
And it was her and her husband by themselves, and they were processing them themselves, so they were doing all that themselves. So we're like, we're going to do this. We're going to give it a shot.
Well, every state is different on the laws.
Yes.
Some say you have to have an enclosed building to process in. Some states say that you have to have a USDA processor to process them. Our state of Alabama is different, and you can process under 20,000 birds in your backyard.
Yeah, and be grandfathered in and not have to worry about USDA inspections. So that's two things that if you're interested in chicken farming or meat chicken farming, there's two things that you need to do first. Number one, call your state ag department because every state is different. Alabama's very lenient on chicken laws, but there's some states out there that are very, very, very strict. So be sure to do that. And here's what I tell everybody when I say this. When you call your state ag department, do several things. Ask who you're talking to, what their phone number is, and what their extension is. And anything they tell you, can you say, please send that to me in an email so I can have it in writing. Because over the years, what we found is that John Doe would tell us one thing in the state ag department. James Doe would tell us something totally different in the state ag department. So, for example, we were told that we could process chickens outside, undercover, no problem. We had some friends of ours got told the totally opposite thing from the same exact state ag department. So I just say that so that way you can halfway be covered if something were to happen. If somebody were to come in, inspect or whatever, you can at least have the name you talk to, the extension, and have it in writing if you can. Same with meat rabbits. We were told meat rabbits had no restrictions in Alabama. Then we had some friends of ours got told the total opposite, that they had to be licensed and whatsoever. So you're talking two different people they talked to, or we talked to, in our state ag department in Alabama, and got two different answers. So if you can, be sure to try to get that in writing some kind of way just to protect yourself. The second thing that you need to do if you're thinking about meat chicken farming, now if you're homesteading is totally different, is market. Do you have a market? There's no reason to go out there and spend all this time and money if you can't sell anything. So, do you have a market? And a market can be anything. It does not have to be a restaurant, a caterer, a grocery store. It can be friends and family, and that's how we started out. We started taking free orders, friends and family, and that's how we got rolling. I think maybe our first one was probably 20, 25, and then it got on up to 50.
It was a gradual process for sure.
It was a gradual process.
We didn't want to start out too heavy, but also we didn't have a market to allow us to start out too heavy.
Right.
I mean, we're reaching out to friends and family, asking them to buy chickens from us, and they don't even know what they're getting in return. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's just kind of a sticky situation, if you will, as far as going into.
Plus, we had no idea what we were doing.
Jason spent ample hours on YouTube.
Yeah.
If y'all know what that is. And his research was endless because we didn't know. All we knew is we had chickens for pets.
Yeah.
And we knew that they had names and they were not going to be processed. Me, myself, I didn't even know if I could do the processing. You know, there may be men like this as well, but us females tend to have a side of us that allows us to not want to take the life of an animal. And I thought, I can't do it. I can't do it. There's no way I can do it. And so until we actually got those chickens, I didn't know if I could do it or not.
Right.
And there was a time there that I could only do the plucking and the scalding.
Yes.
I couldn't do the cleaning. And as you know, we're a family of 3, so that left one person cleaning chickens.
Yep.
I mean, cleaning, doing the dirty part. But,
And too, you know, our first few batches, our first batch, when we got through, they averaged about 1.5, 2 pounds, and we thought they were the biggest meat chickens in the world.
well, that was when they were alive. We thought they were the biggest.
We thought we're like, man, we're gonna kill this. Yeah, it was.
So after processing them, we had all these people that, you know, were lining up trying to tell us that they would buy the chickens from us. That chicken would literally fit in the palm of our hand, clean. And how are we going to ask somebody to purchase this from us when we wouldn't cook it ourselves? It wasn't even enough on it to make bone soup with. I mean, it was just ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. So we lost money at least on our first 3 batches, and we were doing them every 8 to 10 weeks when we started off. But then we got good at it. We got better at it, and then we got super lucky. That's all I can say. We were selling friends and family. The lady or the girl we went and visited in Bessemer, Alabama, called us one day and said that she was stopping her operation. And we want her equipment. We had already bought our equipment, but come to find out, her and her husband were getting a divorce. And I'm not going to say the meat chicken farm had anything to do with it, but that is, if you can stay married after farming, trust me, y'all gonna be together forever. And that's true.
You hear that, Nick?
So we got super lucky. All right, so she wanted to know this, and we want this. Well, we didn't want her equipment. We wanted her customers.
I can remember to this day getting the phone call from her after dropping off Mary Carl at preschool and never being so excited to hear negative news in my life. When she said that she and her husband were getting a divorce and they were no longer going to be doing meat chickens or rabbits, I literally danced in the car. I mean, I was so excited because I thought this is the only opportunity we're ever gonna have
Yeah.
to have a successful business.
This is a tough competition, because usually when a restaurant or that type of business or a caterer, they're used to that farmer. They got a big relationship, and we saw that. And getting a restaurant or a caterer to change farmers is hard. Not to say not to ask all the time, because at some point maybe that farmer ticks him off, and then that gives you the opportunity to get in. But we got super lucky, so we contacted the cater and food truck that they were. Yeah.
We contacted the owner of the food truck catering company, and lo and behold, he was just so happened to have grown up in the city that Jason and I grew up in.
Yes. And so he said yes to give us a shot. Now we did do some things because the competition was tough. What we did to entice him is this was a high-end catering service. They used everything on the chicken. So other farmers were charging for feet, liver, gizzards, heart, and even one of the heads. We threw that in for free, and that's what locked us in with him. And that went well for a long time. But our biggest issue, even though we had everything figured out on the processing end, our biggest issue were chicken tractors. I tried every one there was out there. My first one was an A-frame style. Our property was woods, it's hilly, it's wet. Moving a chicken tractor downhill in a straight line is easy peasy. But when you hit a tree and gotta go left or right, it's hard. And I tried to make all types of adjustments. I put wheels on the side, it never worked. I tried the Joel Salatin chicken tractor, which I absolutely despise. But I know it works for Joel, but it did not work for us at all.
Mary Carl at the time was probably about 4 or 5 years old, and we're asking her to get down in the tractor
to get the chickens out.
Yeah. Because he and I were both too big to get down in there.
I don't know how he does it. I've never seen him get the chickens out on processing day. He's got to have a system to it. But the Joel Salatin chicken tractor, I'm sure most of y'all know, is like 2 foot off the ground, and it's got a door that lifts up. And on processing day, the first 5 or 6 will come on up, and you can get those, but the rest of them figure out quick something's going on. So they're going to the back of that chicken tractor.
You can't go.
No, not at all.
They've seen what happened to their friends, and they're not coming forward.
So the chicken tractor thing had gotten so stressful for us, and with meat chickens, the number one thing that's gonna make or break the outcome is stress. That will determine what weight you're gonna get on the meat chicken, in my opinion, more than anything. And that can be anything. It can be weather related. It can be super cold one day. It could have a huge rainy system come through and it rained for 2 solid weeks. It could be a predator issue that came in and scared them all to death. But stress is the number one reason, in my opinion, why they won't perform like you want them to. And so we were stressed out about the chicken tractor. I know they were getting stressed out about the chicken tractor. So I started trying to come up with other ways to raise meat chickens in an ethical way that I can sell to these restaurants and caterers. And it dawned on me, we have egg layers. Our egg layers are free range. They go up at night, the door comes open in the morning, they come out in the morning and walk around. And they could have free range of our whole property, but I noticed that they didn't go very far out. Even though they could go the whole 7 acres if they wanted to, they never went very far out.
Referring to meat chickens.
No, the egg layers.
Oh, well.
So, not able to. But so what I thought is if I could do this with our meat chickens. So I started thinking of ways how I could do it, and then I thought, well, it's got to be mobile. So I came up with an idea, and that was to build a mobile chicken coop that I can tear down after I got through processing that batch and allow them to free range in a controlled environment. So what I did was I built a hoop house out of cattle house. It was 10 by 20. I took T-post and I put the T-post down in the ground. I'd set the cattle panel in, I'd bow it over, put T-post down, and that's what held it together. Then I put a tarp over it, and I kept them out of weather. And then I took your electric poultry netting. We actually had 3 of them, so it was a huge area for these guys to go. And I could put this setup on any place on my property. I didn't have to worry about moving it. They have plenty of room to free range, and then we could tear it down and put it in another spot and not use that spot for 6 months. And then the hay bedding we would take, we could compost it down and turn it into compost. And it worked so well. We would let them out in the mornings, they would come out, we put all their feeders outside, and we fed ours 24/7. Now I know I call it a myth, because from our experience, it doesn't matter if you feed them 24/7 or 12 on and 12 off, because a chicken is a chicken is a chicken. At night, that meat chicken is going to go up to roost and sleep just like any other egg layer chicken. They're not in there gorging on feed at 9:30 at night, they're asleep. So what we found is that if you didn't feed them 24/7, and if you didn't get out there at 4:30 in the morning when they wake up, they're hungry. So they start piling up at the front of the door, especially when they see you coming. And it's so stressful on them, because they'll start climbing on top of each other and all that. So if you feed them 24/7, when they wake up, they can go eat. And we never had any issues with legs. We never had any issues with our hearts exploding, because you hear that a lot. None of that. And that's what we did. We would open the door up, let them out free range, and then at night, they would go back up.
We might have a few that were left over.
Yeah, you would have a few. Yeah.
But it wasn't like you were on a wild goose chase
Right.
trying to track chickens down. They were so heavy that they couldn't linger far from their house where they slept at night, and they didn't want to, because they
Yeah.
knew where their food was.
That's right. And also I know that the number one question I get asked with this setup is, what about predators? Well, we lived in central Alabama. We have coyotes, foxes, raccoons, possums, and stray dogs. For us, we had hawks. Hawk was our biggest predator, but we had no issues whatsoever with anything else. But we did have 2 livestock guardian dogs that patrolled our area, and between them and the electric poultry netting, we had no issues. Now, every now and then, once or twice a year, maybe 3 times, a hawk would get one of them, and we would just chalk that up of Mother Nature being Mother Nature. We would just, let it be. It would be very, very hard and time consuming to try to figure out a way to deter a hawk from coming in. And if they're just getting 1 or 2 a year, then that was all right with us. So we figured out the whole chicken tractor setup. It was working well. Then what I started doing is when we got money and made profit, I would reinvest that money right back into the business. Our first pieces of equipment were a Featherman scalder and a Featherman plucker. And then as time went on, it was just me and her. Every now and then I would have a buddy or 2 that would come help us, but most of the time it was just me and Brooke processing chickens. And then it dawned on me, we're doing 100 chickens every 6 weeks. All right, 100 chickens. If you can think of a way to reduce a chicken by 1 minute per chicken, that's 100 minutes. Then 2 minutes is 200 minutes. That's 3 hours of processing time right there. If you can just shave off a minute or 2. So I started doing research, and then I would take that money we would make and I would buy more equipment. So our first one was a scalder and a plucker, and we would take our hand and just dump them by hand in the scalder, come up, the restaurant wanted the feet, we had to flip them over, dump the feet, and then put them in the plucker. My next piece of equipment was a manual dunker that attached to the side of the scalder, and it would hold 4 chickens, and it would dump the whole thing. So I've doubled my production right there, right off the bat. Probably saved us 3 hours by getting that manual dunker.
I would have walked to work to get back the time that we saved after we got the manual dunker. It was literally a lifesaver.
It was. The manual dunker was awesome, and we found it on Craigslist. We didn't buy it new. We found it on Craigslist. Our next piece of equipment was the carousel stand Featherman makes. It's got 8 killing combs on it, and it's got a kind of like a bucket or on the bottom of it, container on the bottom of it, and it spins around. So when you're dispatching the chickens, You could do 8 at a time, and it just shaved off another, probably another 30, 40 minutes, at least that.
Right, it was definitely time's well saved.
Yeah, time well saved. Then we'd make a little bit more money, and the next thing I bought was the roto dunker from Featherman. And I don't know if you've ever seen this or not, but it's 2 cages with a rotisserie motor that hooks on the side of the scalder. And you can put 4 chickens on it, and it slowly, like a rotisserie, they go in the water, out the water. And what makes it great is that it's hard to overscald because you can't overscald the chicken. And it made it hard to overscald. So I could put 4 chickens in there while she's cleaning. I could go around and then start separating liver, heart, gizzards, get them bagged, put them on ice, and those guys would be ready to go in the plucker. So that was like having another guy there working for us, for, I don't know how much that thing was, probably $3 or $4.
Well, we found it on Craigslist as well.
We found everything on Craigslist except our first initial purchase of the Featherman plucker and the Featherman scalder. The rest of it we found on Craigslist. But I did start trying to think of all kind of ways to save time. The next thing we bought was the chicken transport cages. Our original thing was that we would take a dog crate, strap it to the back of the side-by-side, back up to where we had the meat chicken set up. We could probably get 8 in there, drive back down to where our processing area was.
That would take us 12 trips with 8 chickens
12
per
trips. The chicken carrying cages will hold up to 8 to 12 chickens. They stack on top of each other. So we went from getting 8 to at least 24. So that just saved so much time. We got so good at it. Me and her could process 100 chickens, bagged, weighed, and on ice in about 2.5, 3 hours. We were rolling.
Tyson wanted us bad.
But yeah, it was really, we really got it rolling. And then COVID hit. We were serving a high-end restaurant, selling chicken for $4.25 a pound. They were averaging about 6 pounds a piece. You're talking about a $24, $25 chicken whole. We were selling to a high-end restaurant. We were selling to a high-end catering service. The food truck had stopped, and both those guys went out of business. And so we were like, oh my gracious, what are we going to do? Competition's tough. So it wasn't really, we reached out to several other restaurants. Of course, we got turned down. Then we decided to maybe back off a little bit and not do it for a little while. And then, lo and behold, our YouTube channel took off. And all that happened right at the same time. It was awesome.
We kind of feel like everything lined up just right. I mean, it was just perfect timing as to us being told that we were no longer going to be raising meat chickens to have that extra money that we needed to provide for our family. We were just, you're out of business overnight, basically. So what do you do?
So that's what we did. We ended up selling our equipment. We sold our equipment to a family in Illinois who drove down that day and bought it for $500 less than what we paid for it. And we had used it for 5 years. It was amazing. But that equipment holds its value. Featherman, they pay me to say this, nothing like that at all. But Featherman equipment is really, really nice if you're doing that for business. If you're homesteading, maybe different. Depending on how many chickens you're doing. If you're doing 3 or 4 chickens a year, you may look into some higher-end equipment.
I want to ask a question. How many of y'all out there knew that we raised chickens for meat previously?
Oh wow, more than I thought.
Well, I just wanted to address the situation that we no longer process chickens.
Yeah.
And all of our chickens have names.
Yeah, we no longer process chickens, but I still have the farming bug. I love it. And we're fixing to start a flower farm. That's our next adventure, is try flower farming. I do have a few tips that we learned along the way. Number one tip is, if y'all live in a rural area and have a local grocery store, not Walmart, not Winn-Dixie, we have Winn-Dixie, I don't know, Piggly Wiggly, that's what we have. Not the big major chains, but a local grocery store. Ask those guys what they do with their old produce, the old dairy, just ask them what they do. You know, we had hogs for a long time. We ran hogs. We sold hogs to the restaurant.
Y'all,
And-
I would be at the grocery store in the morning before 8 o'clock, which was what time they opened, sitting outside in my car, waiting to go in to get produce every morning. Because it saved us. It saved us money.
It
And the
saved us
pigs
money.
loved it. The chickens loved it.
Yeah, yeah, they loved it, especially dairy products. You could soak their feed, the chicken feed, with a dairy product. One of our biggest chickens we raised was we added goat milk to their feed, and man, they were big.